They thought they'd won. Her name was on every line of the will. My son nodded like it all made sense. The woman in the gray suit smiled as if my life now belonged to her. They believed the quiet wife would go home, shut the blinds, and disappear. They were wrong. That wasn't the end. It was the first move in a game they didn't understand. My name is Naomi Carter. I'm 47. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Now I live just outside Baltimore, Maryland. I married Leonard. People called him Leo. When I was 22 and he was 25. He worked at Halberd Logistics and climbed fast. We had a son, Marcus. I left my job at a school library for a couple of years to make life easier. Those couple of years became most of my life. I kept everything running. Groceries, bills, doctor visits, birthdays, school forms, the missing socks, the broken lamp. I didn't keep score. I loved my family. That felt simple enough. Then Leo died without warning. A service, flowers, handshakes. At the microphone, Marcus thanked Leo's team and the pastor. Then he looked at a woman in a gray suit. "Evelyn Ross," he said, voice soft. "You are our real family." No one blinked. No one looked confused. Everyone acted like they already knew. I watched her stand and hug my son like she had the right. A week later, we sat at a long table to hear the will. The lawyer read in a smooth, steady voice. House on Maple Ridge, 2 rentals by the bay, savings, retirement, insurance. Every item went to Evelyn Ross. He didn't say my name once. I didn't speak. I watched Marcus. He looked relieved, not happy, just settled, like a piece finally clicked into place. Evelyn's hand rested on his shoulder. She kept her eyes on the papers. I went home to a quiet kitchen and a cold casserole from someone who meant well. I took down 2 heavy boxes of photos, dumped years onto the rug, and started looking. Leo at the grill. Marcus at 15 in a suit jacket that didn't fit. Christmas lights around the banister. A woman's sleeve near the edge of a frame. A steady hand holding a ladder while I turned away. I zoomed in. Gray fabric. A thin silver bracelet. I checked a second photo, then a third. The same sleeve. The same bracelet. Always just outside the center. How many times had she stood in my house while I called it a busy day? In the morning, I called our neighbor, Dorothy Green. She notices everything and never acts surprised. "That lady from the funeral?" she said, calm as always. "She helped you with the garland last December. Leonard said a colleague would swing by since you were running late." I didn't remember her face. I remembered the garland. That's how it works when you think your life is safe. You notice the decorations, not the hands that hang them. At a small company memorial the next day, a man from Halberd shook my hand and called me ma'am 3 times. "What did Evelyn do there?" I asked. "She was Leon's right hand," he said, like it was common sense. Everybody knew. Everybody except me. I drove home, parked, and sat in the car with my hands on the wheel. The house looked the same as always. Porch light, welcome mat, the plant I kept forgetting to water but somehow kept alive. I went inside, took a pen that wrote on the first try, and pulled an old folder labeled Taxes, MISC, Do Not Lose. I made a new tab and wrote one word: facts. I listed what I knew: dates, names, places, the will. I listed what I needed: statements, logs, emails, who signed what, who approved what, when. I added a question and left space after each line. Who is she to my son? Since when? What did Leo pay for? With whose money? Who else knew? How many times did I stand 2 feet from the truth? That night, I opened our video doorbell history. Evelyn had been on my porch more than once. December, March, 2 weeks before Leo died. In one clip, she carried a storage bin and stepped inside without knocking. My chest didn't burn. It went very still, the way a lake goes still before a storm. I scrolled our photos again. In one picture, Marcus is 17, tie crooked, grinning at someone to my left. I zoomed to the edge. A flash of gray. That bracelet again. She was there. Always near, like a watermark that shows up only when you tilt the page. I slept a little. Before sunrise, I made coffee in the cracked mug Leo never threw away. I wrote a simple plan. Call Halberd and ask for expense records tied to Leo's projects. Talk to Dorothy again and write down exact dates she remembers. List everyone who stood around Evelyn after the funeral. Find a lawyer who will listen before asking me to move on. I started with Halberd. The main line bounced me around. A polite voice said they couldn't share anything by phone. They could set a time to talk in person. I took it. I called Dorothy and asked her to walk me through December, week by week. She remembered the night she saw Evelyn's car parked across the street. She was carrying lights, Dorothy said. Said she was helping since you were at the store. I wrote the date. Before noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, a time and an address near the inner harbor. No name, just, come alone. I saved it and stared at the screen until it dimmed. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was exactly what I needed. I walked through the house slowly. The dent in the couch cushion where Marcus used to fall asleep. The nick in the baseboard from Leo's briefcase. The grocery list on the fridge. Milk. Eggs. Light bulbs. Under it, in my own handwriting, I added a new line. Don't let them write your story. They thought it was over because a lawyer read a page out loud. They thought the quiet wife would stay quiet. But I am not a ghost in my own house. I am here. And the next time someone says my name in a room full of people, it will be because I showed up with the truth. They told me to come alone. I did. The address from the text was a coffee shop by the inner harbor, the kind with big windows and a bell that rings every time the door opens. I picked a table where I could see the street and the counter. My phone face down. My hands flat. I didn't order anything. I was there for one thing only. Answers. A man in a navy jacket sat down across from me without asking. Late 40s, tired eyes, clean shave like he was trying to look more awake than he felt. Naomi? He asked. Yes. I'm Tom Wilkins. I worked with Leo at Halberd. Not anymore. He set a brown envelope on the table, kept one hand on it. I shouldn't be here. Then why are you? I asked. Because everybody keeps saying you should let it go. He slid the envelope toward me. And because not everybody knew what they were helping to build. I didn't touch it yet. What is it? Codes, he said. Project labels, vendors. If you hear pilot housing or retention award, perk up. If you see ER Family Holdings, that's not a charity. He lowered his voice. It's a box with Evelyn's name on it. Why tell me now? He looked out the window like he was checking for someone. Leonard handled approvals. He was smart, kept it clean on paper. But clean doesn't mean right. He stood. Don't go at her head on. Get your own records. Match dates. And Naomi, don't warn Marcus. Not yet. He'll run to her. Who sent the text? I asked. He gave a sad smile. Let's say someone who remembers your garland last December and knows whose hands tied it. The bell rang as he left. He didn't look back. I opened the envelope. Inside, a short list printed in plain black type, internal tags, PH01, pilot housing, RALT, long-term retention award, VEERF, vendor, ER Family Holdings LLC, usual cover, employee support, temporary accommodation, leadership incentive. At the bottom, a scribbled note. Check December 12th, March 4th, June 28th. 3 dates. 3 pins on a map I hadn't drawn yet. Back home, I pulled Leo's old briefcase from the hall closet. The handle still had a scratch from the time it caught the door frame. I unzipped the side pocket and felt paper edges and metal. Receipts. A small keyring with a flat, square fob. On the fob, HV3C. Harborview? I flipped over a folded sheet tucked behind the receipts. A copy of a Harborview Lofts lease, Unit 3C. Tenant, Evelyn Ross. Payer, ER Family Holdings LLC. Contact, L. Carter. I sat still long enough to hear the refrigerator kick on. Unit 3C. Paid by a company that looked like a shell with her initials. Contact, my husband. I spread the receipts on the table. December 12th. A storage store, a florist, a security company. March 4th. A moving firm. June 28th. Bay City Utilities, new account deposit. I pulled my notebook and wrote the dates down next to Tom's note. Then I opened our joint account on my laptop and scrolled. There. City of Bayview Tax Office. Paid from our personal account in April, a bill I didn't remember seeing. I called the number on the line item. City Tax. A woman answered. Hi, I said. I'm checking a property tax payment we made in April. I need to confirm the parcel. She asked me to read the transaction ID. I did. Keys clicked. That payment went to parcel Lamer KF 122, she said. 122 Kingfisher Court. I wrote it down. Name on the parcel? Billing contact is ER Holdings, she said. Anything else I can help with? No, I said softly, and thanked her. Who lives at 122 Kingfisher Court? Why would our household pay taxes for a place I've never been? I called Dorothy. Do you remember a silver bracelet? I asked, and heard how strange that sounded. That lady had one, Dorothy said at once. Thin. Wore it in December when she carried the bin up your steps. Why? No reason, I lied. Thank you. I went to the garage. The air smelled like grass and old paint. On the top shelf sat a banker's box labeled Xmas Lights, Spare. It was heavier than lights should be. Inside, a tangle of cords, a roll of packaging tape, and a thick manila folder with Leo's block letters, Project ERF, Housing Pilot. My mouth went dry. I opened it. Copies of vendor forms, all stamped approved. In the line for vendor, ER Family Holdings. In the purpose field, temporary housing during renovations, key talent relocation, pilot unit. I turned a page and stopped. A photo, printed from a phone. Marcus, 16 here, in our foyer with a Santa hat tipped back, laughing at someone just out of frame. A woman's hand, bracelet shining, holds the end of the garland while he tries to hook it higher. The file name said, IMG 2020. The date, December 12th. Why keep this in a box in the garage? Why not hide it better? Because if everyone thinks you're the quiet wife, a box marked Christmas is the safest vault in the world. I took photos of every page. I put the folder back exactly as it was. I washed my hands twice, as if ink could stain skin. In the afternoon, I drove to 122 Kingfisher Court, telling myself I was only taking a look. It was a clean street near the bay, all small lawns and white mailboxes. The house at 122 had a new door and a fresh number plate. A planter with red flowers sat by the steps, the kind you buy in early summer. The curtains were drawn. No cars in the driveway. I didn't get out. I memorized the shape of the windows and the crack in the sidewalk near the mailbox because that's what I do. I remember the small things that other people miss. On the way back, I passed the Harborview Lofts. The sign out front had blue letters and a metal gull that squeaked in the wind. I parked across the street and watched people go in and out. A couple with a baby stroller. A man with a gym bag. A woman in a gray suit I did not recognize. Not Evelyn. My hands stopped shaking. Not today, I told myself. Not like this. At home, I opened the doorbell app again. I scrolled to June 28th. There she was, noon light on her hair, pressing the bell with her knuckle, turning to wave at someone in a parked car, then stepping inside when the door opened. The person who opened it was Marcus. He was smiling. He moved aside like it was normal. I paused the video and leaned back. When did help become home? When did a favor become a pattern? And how many people had decided the pattern was fine as long as I didn't complain? Before it got dark, I drove to a strip mall and walked into a small law office with gold letters on the glass. Ava Brooks, attorney at law. I didn't go in to start a fight. I went in to ask a question. The receptionist looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. "But I have dates and documents." I held up a folder with the copies I'd made. "And I don't want to lose them." She studied my face like she was deciding if I would break. "Ms. Brooks has a cancellation at 4:30, she said. "Can you wait?" "Yes." In the lobby, the clock ticked loud enough to count. I reread my notes. PH01, RALT, V, SRF, December 12th, March 4th, June 28th, Harborview 3C, 122 Kingfisher Court, doorbell clips, tax office call, Dorothy's memory of the bracelet, Marcus, opening my door to her without knocking. At 4:30, the door opened. A woman in a dark blazer stepped out, mid-40s, steady eyes. "Naomi?" "Yes." "I'm Ava," she said. "Come on back. Tell me what you have. Start with the part that keeps you up at night." I sat across from her and laid everything out in order, the way I'd lay out school forms at the kitchen table before the first day of classes. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want the truth recorded. I want to be seen." She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "Move on." She tapped a pencil once and nodded. "Good," she said. "Truth leaves trails. We follow them." "How?" I asked. "First, we freeze what we can," she said. "Second, we collect what they can't unmake. Video, emails, payments, signatures. Third, we build a story that even a stranger can understand in 10 minutes." She flipped one of the copies around. "This, ER Family Holdings. We'll pull filings. And Naomi? Don't warn Evelyn. Don't confront Marcus. Let the paper speak first." When I left the office, the sky over the harbor was turning orange. I sat in my car and watched the water darken. My phone buzzed. A new text from that same unknown number. "Harbor View, 3C. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. If you want to see it with your own eyes." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Was it a trap? A test? Or the piece I needed to stop asking if I was crazy? I saved the address. I drove home slow. I made a simple dinner and ate standing up because I couldn't sit still. I checked the locks. I checked my folder twice. I set an alarm for 5. When I turned off the kitchen light, the house felt different. Not safer. Not yet. But honest. Like a room where you've pulled up a corner of the rug and found the stain you always smelled but couldn't name. They thought I would stop at the will. They thought the page ended the story. But pages stack. Trails connect. And tomorrow at 6, I would put my eyes on Unit 3C and see exactly what kind of family Evelyn had tried to build in my shadow. At 5:58 p.m., I stood under the Harbor View sign with the metal gull that squeaks when the wind hits it. They thought I'd be scared off by a locked door. I had a key fob from Leo's briefcase in my pocket and a folder of copies in my bag. I didn't come for a fight. I came for proof. The fob opened the glass door. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner. A whiteboard near the mailroom listed packages to pick up. I took a slow breath when I read 2 lines in dry marker. Ross, E, office hold, ER, family, holdings. Office hold. I took a photo. No shaking hands, no tears, just facts. The elevator chimed and carried me to the 3rd floor. Beige carpet. A humming exit light. At 3C, there was a small plant by the door in a plain gray pot. The mat said, "Welcome," in thin gold letters. I didn't knock. I wasn't ready to be seen by the people who had rehearsed a life without me. A voice on the other side made me stop. Marcus. My son. close enough that I could hear, far enough that he didn't know I was there. The lawyer said it's all clean, he was saying, careful and low. Dad planned it so Mom wouldn't have to worry about anything. A woman answered, calm, smooth. Evelyn. Exactly, baby. Your father protected her. That's what good men do. Keep the hard parts off their wives. A chair moved. Glass touched wood. Marcus again. She won't fight it. She never does. I had to put my hand on the wall to steady myself, not because of the words, because of how easy they sounded in his mouth. Evelyn. Trust the plan. This is what Leon wanted. We built it for years. I stepped back on quiet feet and walked to the elevator. In the shiny door I saw my face. Plain, steady, alive. The doors opened and closed. My knees felt loose like they might forget how to hold me up. But they did. They always have. Downstairs, the leasing office lights were still on. A young woman with a name tag looked up. Can I help you? I'm asking about corporate rentals, I said, like a person thinking of moving. Do you take them? All the time, she said, bright and friendly. We have a few on the third floor. Company leases. One is, 3C. That one's been a corporate unit a while. Do you know which company? She checked a screen and frowned the way people do when they're deciding what they're allowed to say. Just says ER Family Holdings, ma'am. Thank you. I smiled like it was casual. I took a brochure. She scribbled Corp 3C on the corner so I'd remember. I already would. Outside, the harbor was turning purple. I sat in my car and wrote it all down while it was fresh. The board in the lobby, the unit, the voices, the exact words I could quote to myself in the dark and hate later if I wanted to. Hate would be easy. I chose work. I drove through the Bay District to 122 Kingfisher Court. I told myself I was only going to look, not to get out, not to be foolish. A new door, fresh numbers, a planter with red flowers, the kind they sell on sale 2 for 1 in June. No car in the drive, curtains pulled. The only sound was a flag rope tapping a metal pole next door. A woman watering petunias across the street lifted her chin in a hello. I crossed over. Evening, I said. Do you know if this street allows corporate rentals? I might bring my mother closer to the water, but I heard some HOAs don't love it. She shrugged. Ask the board. That house had contractors in and out last month. Saw a gray sedan here weekends. Same lady each time. Friendly, I guess. Carried boxes like she didn't want help. Did you catch her name? No, the woman said, then smiled. But the young man with her called her Eve. My jaw wanted to lock. I made it relax. Thank you, I said, and walked back to my car like my legs were hollow and light. At home, I set the brochure, the photo of the whiteboard, and my notes in a neat stack. I opened my laptop and pulled the state business search. ER Family Holdings, LLC had a filing address that wasn't a home. Registered agent. No human face. A neat gray box on paper, like the neat gray suit in my doorway. I emailed everything to Ava Brooks with a short line. Harbor View confirms corporate lease, 3C to ER Family Holdings. Heard Marcus and Evelyn inside. Built it for years. Also, 122 Kingfisher likely theirs. Neighbor says a woman called Eve is there on weekends. What next? Ava called instead of writing back. You did well, she said. No confrontations? No. Good. Tomorrow I'll file to freeze what can be frozen. We'll send notices to keep records. Next, we request expense reports from Halberd. The ones tied to those tags you found. I'll need dates. I have dates, I said, and read them off. December 12th, March 4th, June 28th. There's more. In Leo's box, I found a folder labeled Project ERF, Housing Pilot. Copies of vendor forms. All approved. Purpose fields say temporary housing, relocation, Pilot unit. Ava was quiet for a beat that sounded like a door clicking into place. Then there's a trail. We'll follow it. What about Marcus? I asked. My voice came out softer than I meant. He opened our door to her like it was normal. He called this the plan. I know, she said. Not pity. Not scold. Just two words that covered more than one kind of pain. Don't bring him into the middle yet. Let paper talk first. After we hung up, I watched the doorbell clips again. June 28th. Evelyn ringing, waving at a parked car, stepping into my house when Marcus opened the door without looking at the peephole. March 4th. A delivery guy carries a tall box in. Evelyn signs. The name on the tablet reads E. Ross. December 12th. Her wrist with the thin bracelet flashes in the frame as she lifts a bin and laughs at something I can't hear. How many times had she stood on my steps? How many times had my son chosen to see her as help, not replacement? When did a borrowed hand become a second home? Close to midnight, my phone buzzed. Same unknown number as before. You have enough to file. Freeze first. They move money after funerals. I typed, "Who are you?" The three dots blinked and vanished. No answer. I didn't need one tonight. I put the phone face down and laid out tomorrow like a grocery list. Print the photo of the lobby board and the leasing note. List every ERF charge I can find by date and vendor. Ask Ava about a constructive trust. I wrote it down the way she said it. A way to make the court hold what was taken until truth has its say. Call Dorothy for a written statement about the garland and the bracelet. I washed the cracked mug and set it upside down to dry. The house was so quiet I could hear the fridge cycle and the soft tick of the stove clock. I walked to the hallway and stopped at the garage door. I knew what was in that box marked X-Mass lights. Spare. I touched the knob and then left it. I didn't need more tonight. I had enough. On my way upstairs, I paused at Marcus's old room. The trophies still lined the shelf. The blue ribbon from a science fair drooped in the summer heat. I pressed my palm to the doorframe where we used to mark his height in pencil. The last line read 17. My heart hurt in the simple, honest way a muscle hurts when you finally use it for its real work. Seeing is work. Choosing not to look away is work. The women they call strong know this. Strength isn't a speech. It's a stack of small, steady choices in the face of people who think you'll quit. I turned off the hall light. In the dark, the house felt less like a museum to someone else's plan, and more like a place where I could stand up straight. They believed a will was the end. It was only a page. I had the rest of the chapter in my hands now, and in the morning, we were going to put it in front of a judge. By noon, the bank had a freeze order with my name on it. By 3, Halberd Logistics got a letter saying, "Do not delete a single email." By 5, my son called and asked me why I was doing this to us. That was the first time that day I almost cried. Not because of the fight I knew was coming, but because he said us, and I heard who he meant. Morning started at Ava's office. I brought the folder, the photos, the dates, the video stills. She spread everything out like a map. "Plain words," I said. "Tell me what we're doing." "We're asking the court to hold everything in place while we prove what happened," she said. "It's called a freeze. We'll ask for records from the company and the banks. And we'll ask the judge to treat what was moved as if it still belongs to you, until the court decides. That's a constructive trust. It keeps people from hiding the ball. What do you need from me?" "Sign here," she said, sliding a statement across. "And keep breathing." We filed the papers at the courthouse downtown. The clerk stamped the top page so hard the desk shook. Ava asked for an emergency hearing. The judge's clerk gave us a time. Friday, 10 a.m., 2 days. A process server left with 3 thick packets. One for Evelyn Ross, one for ER Family Holdings LLC, one for Halberd Logistics. Ava also sent preservation letters to the banks and to Halberd's IT. Simple words, heavy meaning. Don't destroy anything. Don't move a dollar. Don't touch the email archive. At the bank, the manager read the freeze order, swallowed, and said he'd contact legal. He copied my ID. He was polite in that careful way people are when they realize a story is larger than the screen they've been looking at. On the sidewalk outside, my phone buzzed. Unknown. Good start. Next, look for RALT memos around March 4th. Subject lines will say, retention. The attachments won't. I typed, "Who are you?" No reply. I took a breath. I didn't need the name today. I needed the lead. We drove to Halberd. At the front desk, Ava introduced herself and handed over the letter. "We're requesting expense records for internal tags, PH01, RALT, and vendor ER Family Holdings," she said. "And we're asking you to preserve all of Leonard Carter's emails and approvals." The receptionist's smile tucked away. She called someone upstairs. A man in a blue tie came down with a neutral face and a card that said, "Compliance." He read the letter. He didn't argue. He only said, "We'll cooperate," in a voice that sounded like it had practiced that sentence in a mirror. When we reached the parking lot, my phone rang. Marcus. "Mom, what are you doing?" His voice was tight, like a string pulled too hard. "I'm making sure nothing disappears," I said. "You're attacking Dad's memory." "I'm protecting 25 years of my life," I said. "Those can coexist." "You're going to humiliate us," he said, and then corrected himself. "Her. You'll humiliate her. She doesn't deserve that." "Marcus, I heard you at Harbor View," I said quietly. "I heard you say this was the plan for years." Silence. Then, "You shouldn't have been there." "I shouldn't have had to be," I said. "We'll talk. Just not on the phone. Not like this." He let out a breath that sounded like a door closing. "Do what you want," he said, and hung up. Ava watched my face. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I'm upright." Back home, I found a note in my mailbox. No envelope. Just a half sheet of paper, folded twice. "Check 11:12 p.m., March 3rd. Subject, temporary unit. Sender, L. Carter. Recipient, K. Nguyen." I took the paper inside like it might break. I called Ava. "We need to talk to Kim Nguyen," I said. "Tonight, if we can." "Let me try," she said. An hour later, I sat in the far corner of a small Picho place with a woman in a gray cardigan and tired eyes. Kim Nguyen stirred tea she didn't drink. "I'm not a hero," she said. I kept my head down. "I'm not asking for a medal," I said. "I'm asking if the records will match what I think they say." She nodded once. Leonard was careful. He routed things through employee support budget lines. "The codes you have, PH01 and RALT, they were our bucket for pilot housing and retention awards." He approved vendor ER Family Holdings himself. On paper, it looked like help for staff. In reality, it was units and utilities for someone else. "Did people know?" I asked. "People guessed," she said. "Some didn't want to. He was senior. He signed. I have the emails. The one on March 3rd, 11:12 p.m. He wrote, 'Push ERF off the consolidated vendor list. Keep under project code. Need temp unit ready by 3/4. Don't flag nah.'" She stopped, looked up. He stopped mid-word. The next line says, "Use standard language." "Don't flag Naomi." I finished in my head. Out loud, I asked, "Will you testify if the court asks?" She stared at the steam rising from her cup. "If I have a subpoena," she said, "and if you promise to keep my kids out of it." "I promise," I said. Ava texted as we paid the bill. "Friday hearing is set. Judge Rivera, bring originals and the doorbell clips. Tom Wilkins emailed spreadsheets. We're getting traction." Back home, Dorothy knocked with a sheet of paper in her hand. You asked for dates, she said. I wrote down what I remember. December 12th. Gray coat, silver bracelet, a plastic bin. March 4th. A tall box. Same woman signing on a tablet. June 28th. She waved at someone in a parked car and went inside after Marcus opened the door. I took the page like a gift. Thank you. You're not alone, she said. Even if it feels like it. It felt like it. At 7, a knock at my door. Slow. Even. I looked through the peephole. Evelyn. Gray suit again. Calm eyes. A smile that didn't reach them. I opened the door but left the chain on. Naomi, she said. Soft. Warm. The voice you use when you tell a scared dog you're a friend. Can we talk? Woman to woman? I think there's been a misunderstanding. I have counsel, I said. If you'd like to talk, you can talk to her. She tilted her head like I was a child who'd mixed up left and right. Leon wanted to keep you safe, she said. He didn't want you to worry about assets and taxes. He trusted me with that. He knew you didn't enjoy messy things. Messy things like my house? I asked. The smile tightened. This doesn't have to get ugly, she said. You have the memories. Let me handle the rest, like I've been doing. It's what he wanted. Then you shouldn't be afraid of a judge, I said, and closed the door. She didn't knock again. I watched her walk down the steps as if the steps belonged to her. At 9, my email pinged. Tom Wilkins. Subject, RALT summary, redacted. Inside, a simple table, dates, amounts, vendor codes. Deck 12. Storage, florist, security. Mar 4. Delivery, utilities deposit. June 28. New account setup, cleaning, welcome kit. The welcome kit cost more than our last roof repair. Another email landed from Ava. We served ERF and Evelyn. Their lawyer called, asks for time. I said see you Friday. I printed everything. I labeled the edges with sticky notes. Doorbell, Deck 12, doorbell, Mar 4, doorbell, Jun 28, Harbor View, 3C, Kingfisher, taxes, Kim, 11:12 p.m. email, Tom, RALT table, lobby board photo. I stacked them inside a clean binder because sometimes the only power you have is how neat your pile looks when you set it down. Before bed, I stood in the doorway of Marcus's room and tried to imagine the conversation we would have if he came home. Would he say she saved him? Would he say I didn't? Would he ask me to drop it to keep the peace that already left? My phone buzzed on the dresser. Unknown. They'll try to move a small account at opening tomorrow. Name starts with Bay. Watch 839 Saus. I typed back, why help me? 3 dots. Then. Because he told me once, Naomi won't look. He was wrong. I didn't sleep long. At 8:25 I sat in my car outside the Bayview branch. At 8:37 a man in a suit I didn't know walked in. At 8:42 Evelyn followed, phone in hand, eyes forward. At 8:49 she walked out fast, mouth tight, no papers in her hand. The freeze had landed. I texted Ava. They tried. They couldn't. Good, she wrote back. Now we prepare for Friday. Bring your voice and your facts. Let paper speak first. You speak last. I went home, made coffee in the cracked mug, and took one more pass through the binder. This wasn't revenge. This was a record. A record is how you keep people from erasing you in public and calling it order. They thought the quiet wife would fold. They thought the word real would hold. But a courtroom doesn't care who hugged whom at a funeral. It cares what happened, when, and with whose money. And in 2 days, all 3 of those answers were going to sit under lights with my name on them. By the time the judge finished speaking, one person in that room had nothing left to claim. Papers were signed, but that wasn't the part that stayed with me. It was the small sound my son made, barely a breath, right before he stopped looking at me at all. If you want to know how we got there, put your eyes on the facts that walked into the courtroom and refused to leave. I arrived with my binder. Tabs on the right. Doorbell. Deck 12. Doorbell. Mar 4. Doorbell. Jun 28. Harbor View. 3C. Kingfisher. Taxes. ERF filings. Tom's table. Kim's email. Lobby board photo. I had copied everything twice. I wore flats because dignity stands better when your feet don't hurt. Ava took the chair beside me. Plain words, she whispered. Plain words, I said back. Judge M. Rivera took the bench at exactly 10 miles. Calm face, clear voice. We are here on Mrs. Carter's motion to freeze assets and impose a constructive trust pending further proceedings, she said. Counsel. Opening. Ava stood. Your Honor, this is not a case about grief or a lifestyle dispute. It is about money moved through a company named ER Family Holdings, ER for Evelyn Ross, using internal codes at Halberd Logistics to hide what it was really buying: housing, utilities, and comforts for Ms. Ross. While Mr. Carter's wife, Naomi, supported the home for 25 years, these assets were diverted. We will show paper, emails, vendor records, tax payments, plus simple video and eyewitness dates. We ask you to hold everything where it is and recognize a constructive trust over what was taken. Evelyn's lawyer, a man with a perfect tie and a voice like a smooth road, stood next. We will show that every transaction had a business purpose, he said. Employee support, retention, pilot housing. Ms. Ross was a trusted administrator who carried out Mr. Carter's wishes, and his will confirms those wishes. The judge nodded and looked at us. Let's see the paper. Ava started with Exhibit 1, a short affidavit from the leasing office, confirming Unit 3C, Harbor View Lofts, as a corporate lease held by ER Family Holdings LLC, contact L. Carter. Then, Exhibit 2, my photo of the lobby board, Ross E. Office hold, ER Family Holdings. Office hold. She didn't try to make it dramatic. She just let the words sit where everyone could see them. Exhibit 3 was a set of bank records. Our household account paying City of Bayview taxes for 122 Kingfisher Court. The city's response listing ER Family Holdings as billing contact. Mrs. Carter never visited that property, Ava said. She only found the payment while reconciling after her husband's death. The judge looked over the page. Why would a household account pay taxes for a property the spouse doesn't know exists? She asked out loud, to no one in particular. No one answered. The question stayed on the record like a thumbprint. Then the room lights dimmed and Exhibit 4 played. The December 12th doorbell clip. Evelyn on my porch. Thin bracelet catching the light. Lifting a bin. My son's voice off camera. Her stepping inside without knocking. March 4th. A tall box delivered. Evelyn signing on the tablet. E. Ross on the screen. June 28th. Evelyn ringing, waving at a parked car, then entering when Marcus opens the door. Nothing fancy. Just timestamps and normal movements wearing the wrong names. Evelyn's lawyer stood. Objection to authentication? Ava had the certification from the doorbell company and the phone export logs ready. Business records, Your Honor, she said. Chain of custody attached. Overruled, Judge Rivera said. Tom Wilkins took the stand next. He looked like a man who'd slept more since quitting than he had in 3 years before. He spoke plainly. At Halberd, PH01 meant pilot housing, RALT meant retention award long-term, and vendor, ER Family Holdings, was the path Mr. Carter used when he wanted payments to go out with no questions. I compiled a summary of those codes tied to Ms. Ross. Ava showed his RALT table. Dates matched my doorbell clips like rungs on a ladder. On cross, the perfect tie asked, Mr. Wilkins, did you see any personal benefit Ms. Ross took? Tom didn't blink. I saw a system that paid for a unit at Harbor View and utilities at Kingfisher. If that's business, it's business I never got. Kim Nguyen was quiet until she wasn't. Mr. Carter emailed me at 11:12 p.m., March 3rd, she said, reading from a printout. Push ERF off consolidated vendor list. Keep under project code. Need temp unit ready by 3-4. Don't flag na. The line stops. Next line, use standard language. She swallowed. We all knew what standard language meant. It meant words that look fine from far away. Evelyn's lawyer tried to soften it. Ms. Nguyen, could na have meant anything else? Kim raised her eyes. In our office? No. Dorothy Green came in her Sunday jacket. She told the judge the dates like she was reading a grocery list. December 12th, gray coat, thin bracelet, plastic bin. March 4th, a tall box delivered, same lady signed. June 28th, she waved at a parked car. Then your son opened the door and let her in. She folded her hands. That's all I saw. Thank you, Ms. Green, the judge said, like people talk to the most reliable person in the room. When it was Evelyn's turn, she kept her hands flat and her eyes friendly. Leonard set this up to make things easier for Naomi, she said. I managed the messy parts so she could have peace. The corporate leases were for staff. Leon was the contact, of course, because he led the division. Taxes? I don't know why a personal account was used. That sounds like an automatic bill pay issue. The bracelet. She smiled a little. That was a Christmas gift from the team. Ava didn't push her voice up. She only laid out the simple steps. Ms. Ross, why is the corporate unit addressed to ER Family Holdings, a company whose initials match your name? It's a family entity, Evelyn said smoothly. Leon asked me to set it up. Why did Mr. Carter write, "Don't flag not" in an email about a unit you used? I can't speak to what he typed. Why do doorbell videos show you entering Mrs. Carter's home repeatedly when she was not there? I was helping, Evelyn said. We were all grieving. We were all pitching in. Ava let the silence hang. Then, do you consider yourself real family to Marcus Carter? Evelyn took a breath. He said that in pain, she answered. People say things. People also type things, Ava said and returned to counsel table. Mrs. Carter, the judge said, do you wish to speak before I rule? I stood. My knees didn't shake. I kept our home, I said. I didn't know about any of this. I don't want revenge. I want the record to match the truth. I want what belonged to our marriage to stop being treated like it was off to the side. Judge Rivera looked down at her notes for a long moment that made everyone very still. Then she spoke in the kind of order you can repeat to yourself later without losing your place. First, she said, the freeze remains. No assets move without court permission. Second, given the evidence, emails, vendor codes, corporate leases matching Ms. Ross's initials, household tax payments on a property the spouse did not know about, this court finds that funds and property were channeled through ER Family Holdings for the benefit of Ms. Ross. Third, the court imposes a constructive trust over the Harborview unit, the Kingfisher property, and associated accounts. They are to be returned to the marital estate pool pending final distribution. Fourth, to the extent the will purports to dispose of assets obtained through these mechanisms, it is set aside as to those assets. Fifth, all parties are ordered to preserve emails and records. Spoliation will be sanctioned. Fees reserved. The room didn't gasp. Courtrooms don't. They change shape without moving a chair. Ava squeezed my hand once. I kept my eyes forward. The perfect tie stood. Your Honor, we request a stay. Denied, the judge said, already rising. We move to scheduling next week. When the gavel went down, the sound was small. The change was not. In the hallway, the air felt different, thinner and cleaner. People moved around us the way water finds new paths when the rock shifts. Evelyn stepped out with her lawyer. She didn't look at me. Or maybe she did, and decided not to see. Marcus stood near the water fountain, hands in his pockets, eyes on the floor. For a heartbeat, I saw him at 6 in his science fair t-shirt, mouth blue from a snow cone, asking me if the moon followed our car home. I waited. He didn't look up. I walked past without touching him. My love is not a leash. Outside, Ava exhaled for both of us. You were perfect, she said. Short, clear. We'll draft the orders and start the next steps. What happens now? I asked. Now we count what's there, she said. We put real numbers on what pretended to be support. We'll likely see more: utilities, furnishings, maybe travel. We'll take depositions. They will hate it. That's all right. My phone buzzed. Unknown again. Good. Watch for backdated invoices next. Subject lines will say, MISC. I typed, thank you. No reply. I didn't need one. The courthouse steps felt like ground again. On the drive home, the city looked the same to anyone, not me. For me, signs read clearer. The Bay, the street where I bought Marcus his first suit, the school where I shelved books, the grocery store with the good apples. I had not disappeared, no matter how neat the paperwork tried to make it look. At my door, I paused. The mat still said, Welcome, in thin gold letters. I unlocked the deadbolt, stepped inside, and set the binder on the table. The house held its breath and then let it out. I made coffee in the cracked mug and poured it into a clean cup because some things you keep and some things you retire with thanks. If you're wondering whether I felt triumphant, I didn't. I felt accurate. I felt like a name typed correctly after a year of spelling it wrong. Someone left that room with nothing to point to and call theirs. I didn't leave with everything. I left with truth on paper and the weight of choosing it, even when the person I loved most wouldn't meet my eyes. In a week, we would schedule the next round. In a month, we would tally what family had cost when it hid in the edges of my pictures. Tonight, I washed the mug, turned off the kitchen light, and let the quiet be honest. They thought a will would be the last word. It wasn't. The last word is the one you give yourself when you refuse to be erased. 2 months after the judge's order, a moving truck blocked the Harborview entrance. No speeches, no scenes, just the sound of tape ripping and a door that didn't need my key anymore. A for lease sign went up on Kingfisher Court. People asked if I felt victorious. I didn't. I felt correct, like a name finally spelled right. But the one thing I wanted most didn't come with any court paper. My son's eyes, looking at me, not past me. Life turned quiet in a new way. We counted what was there: utilities, deposits, the welcome kit that cost more than our roof. Ava filed numbers the way a nurse counts heartbeats: steady, exact. I went back to the library 3 mornings a week. I cut the dead ends off the hydrangea out front. I learned how to fix a sticking window with a bar of soap. The house felt honest, even when it felt empty. I could breathe in it without asking permission from the past. Evelyn's lawyer sent letters that sounded like steam. Loud, then gone. She kept her chin high in the hallway and passed me like I was a coat hook. I didn't follow her with my eyes. My life isn't a chase. Then time did what time does. It moved. A year later, my father passed in Atlanta, and the old house smelled like lemon oil and church clothes. Neighbors came with pies and stories. I poured tea, said thank you, tried not to cry at the places in the stories where his laugh should have been. Near dusk, a car door shut outside. Marcus stood on the porch in a blue jacket that made him look both older and younger. He held his hands the way he did at 7 when he'd broken my favorite mug, ready to own it, terrified I'd be mad forever. Mom, he said. Just that. Then he stepped forward and hugged me with the whole of himself, the way little boys do, arms hard, face in my shoulder. His breath shook. Mine did too. I'm sorry, he said into my dress. I liked the easy story. Dad was a hero. Evelyn helped. You were strong, so you didn't need anything. It made sense in my head. It was lazy. I was lazy. I put my palm on the back of his neck like I used to when he had fevers. You were grieving, I said. So was I. Grief sells simple stories. The truth takes work. He stepped back, eyes red. Did you hate me? No, I said. I hated the room you stood in. I hated that the door was open and you didn't see me there. I took his hand and squeezed it once. You see me now? I do, he said. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket and set it on the table inside the door. I've been paying for the couch at Harbor View. I didn't know. I know now. It's a receipt, I said, smiling a little. Good. Keep it. Knowing is your receipt. We sat at the old kitchen table where my father once cracked pecans with a hammer wrapped in a dish towel. Outside, cicadas wound up their evening choir. We didn't solve everything. We didn't try. He asked small questions. I gave small answers. What breaks a family? A lie told so softly you call it kindness. What starts to build it back? A true word, spoken low, then another, then another. Before he left, he rested his forehead against mine like he was checking my temperature. Can I come by on Sundays? He asked. No speeches, just eggs, coffee, your voice in the house. Bring your own mug, I said. But yes. When the door closed behind him, the house was not empty. It was full of air that hadn't been there in a long time. I washed 2 cups. I left one to dry and put mine back on the hook, the cracked one Leo never threw away. Some things you retire. Some things you keep to remember what they taught you. Later, when the guests had gone and the light was thin and gold, I stood in front of the mirror and saw a woman whose name was on her own life again. I slipped off my shoes. I unzipped my dress. I folded it over the chair. The floor felt cool under my feet. The good kind of real. I wasn't waiting across the room for someone to call me the real family. I was the family who had stayed, worked, and finally spoken. I turned off the lamp. The house didn't feel like a museum of old plans anymore. It felt like 4 true walls and a roof. Tomorrow I'd return a library book, buy onions, text Marcus a recipe he forgot he loved. Tomorrow was ordinary. That was the beauty. They thought the will was the last word. It wasn't. The last word was mine. I am here. I was here all along. And the world heard me not because I shouted, but because I stopped whispering. If this story moved you, tap subscribe, leave a like, and tell me what part stayed with you in the comments. More true-to-life stories about ordinary people with complicated paths are coming here. Don't miss the next one.